Hello, and welcome to episode 275 of Mike's Workshop. Today we're going to talk about building birdhouses, such as this one and this one, which have already been built. They were modeled after this one, which has always been around, but as you can see is fallen apart. So we used it as a pattern, copied the pieces, and made cutouts out of sturdy cardboard. So we have an example of the front, which is also the back, the roof piece, the base, and sides. You'll need two sides, one base, two roofs, a front, and a back. The front will have a hole for the bird or birds, and a small hole to mount a dowel pin, which the birds may choose to sit on as they wait to fly in or out. So those are the pieces. This is the old one, which we've copied, we don't need. And then you'll need some material. These are pieces left over from building Mike's Workshop. This is the siding from Mike's Workshop. Also some other pieces of some cedar or some pine. The problem with the siding, of course, is that it's not uniformly thick, it's beveled, as siding will be, and that causes some difficulty when building a square birdhouse. But these are good for the roof pieces, and these can be good for the sides. As far as tools, you'll need some sort of a saw. This is a handy compound miter saw, which is good for sliding and cutting angles. It's got a guard on it. You'll want to be careful there. This can cut off your fingers, your hands. You'll also need a nail gun. Well, it's handy to have a nail gun. You can also use a hammer and nails, but a nail gun makes it easy with power from the air, and your nails loaded in there, and bang, 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 and it goes together pretty quickly. And most importantly, you'll want to be wearing your PPE, personal protective equipment, which in this case should include a pair of safety glasses to keep the sawdust and possible nails out of your eye. So we'll continue in the next section with actually cutting and assembling a small birdhouse. Now these birdhouses, as you may be aware, are designed for all kinds of birds, as long as they can fit in that hole. And wasps will also use these birdhouses. So we'll continue here shortly and cut and assemble one of these handmade Alpine style lake birdhouses. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to continue with this episode of Mike's Workshop, in which we're working on building a birdhouse. And we're ready to start by probably cutting out the base, which, as you can see, we've got, as you remember earlier, we copied another birdhouse, and we've got the base pattern made out of stiff cardboard. A couple tools I forgot to mention in the earlier part of this episode, possibly a T-square like this, and a simple pencil. This is actually a carpenter's pencil, even branded with the Ryobi brand, matching the saw. Long story about how we have some Ryobi stuff. I'm not sure where we got the pencil. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take the base piece, and this is the material that we're going to build the base out of. The first step is just to go ahead and square up the edges, and of course I'm not wearing my safety glasses, but you should. And we'll go ahead and just trim off. Oh, and we remembered our guard is messed up, so we got to jam a little piece of plastic in there to keep it out of the way, because you want to be able to cut the wood. It's not that important about your fingers. So we squared up the edge, and we're going to go ahead and lay the base in position, the base stencil, and square that up, and just grab our pencil here and just put a little line here and on the other side. So we got something to line up against there with the saw. So we'll just lay that in place and go ahead and chop. We didn't chop it all the way through, no need, because our other cut is shorter there. And then we'll just lay that on in there. What do you know? We got a base that's going to be good for our birdhouse. And you can see it's pretty close to the original size. So we have one base. So that'll be the...
Hey Mike, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
That'll be the bottom of the birdhouse. So we got neighbors walking by while we're trying to build birdhouses and distracting us. Also dogs. All kinds of things happening here at the lake. Need a couple of side pieces. Wow, we might be able to get two sides. If that's our base, we want to keep that. Let's look for some scrap. We almost cut up our good piece. Well, we can get one side out of here. So let's look at that. That's pretty square. So let's go ahead and mark off the trim for our side. It's always good to try to use up your scrap that you got laying around. So we'll go ahead and cut that. Now we actually need two of these because this is our side that goes under the between the front and the back and under the roof. So we need a couple of those. See if we got any more handy material of similar dimension. Okay, we got another piece. Let's go ahead and mark that one off. Okay, now we got two sides. You can see they're pretty much the same size. That's good. So I think everything's going to go together. So you get the idea. We've got a base. We're going to have a couple sides. We're going to stack a front on there like this. Once we get it cut out. And then we like to go with some fancy roofing. Perhaps a little of this siding material we'll cut in place and put that like that. So we'll get a hole in the front, we'll get a front piece, we'll get a couple of roof pieces, and we'll be good to go. So we'll be back here in a bit. We're not going to bore you with trimming some of these others. They're a little more complex, and I probably don't want you to watch that part, so that's a trade secret. But you will see the final assembly here in just a little bit. So anyway, thanks for watching Mike's Workshop, and we'll continue here shortly. Okay, welcome back to Mike's Workshop. And while we were away, well, while you were away, I was here, and I was cutting out the front and the back pieces of our birdhouse. And we haven't put the hole in the front. If we put it together like this, the birds wouldn't be able to get in. But we will eventually put a hole in the front of this piece, but we'll look at that a little bit later. So the first step, or next step, is to get the base and the back piece fastened together with the nail gun. So the back piece goes flush to the back of the base. So we're going to do that here in a second. Get a cocktail open. And then we're going to go ahead and got the nail gun ready. And it's connected to an air supply. And we're going to go ahead and get this nailed together. Now, I don't have any fixtures or jigs to do this. So I just kind of hold things together. And just so you're aware, I'm using a little bit over 1 inch nail here, about an inch and an eighth. And of course, those are long enough to go through the wood and into your hand, fingers, or any other body parts. You want to be careful. We'll go ahead and pop one in there. That one bounced out for some reason. And we'll pop this one in there. we get that back piece fastened on there, and that's cool. And then we're going to go ahead and look at getting a side piece on there. And the sides are angled a bit, so they're a little more fiddly. But of course, once we've got the back on there, just line it right up. That's easy enough to do. Okay. So we've got a back, and we've got one side piece. Now we'll get our other side on. Also, you might want to think about which side you put out, depending on how weathered or aged your material is. So we want to pick kind of the rustic side, and the smoother side actually inside for the little birdies. Although they'll probably line it with some grass and fuzz and whatever they nest with. Okay. So we've got our two sides on, we've got a back on, and we're about ready to put the front on. But before we put the front on, we want to go ahead and put a bird hole in here. And we're using a hole saw with a bird size hole bit in there. And that little guy, I actually haven't marked a location, but you want it to be centered probably across just below where the peak starts. Center it right in here. You can eyeball that. The birds won't care. They'll get in and out just fine. Now, of course, Mike's workshop is outfitted with a drill press, which is probably the better way to do this rather than the handheld battery-powered drill with the battery that's been charged, but it's a couple of years old and it's really not doing such a great job. But it'll get through there, and now we got a bird hole, and that's just the right size for the local birds to get in and out of, and wasps and pretty much everything else too. So we're ready to go ahead and fasten that onto the front of the birdhouse. Again, you want to look at both sides of your material, and I'm choosing, I guess I'm choosing this side, a little more even in coloration. Although if you decide to oil or paint your house, it really won't much matter. So we'll line that up. Go ahead and pop a couple in there, and then get the other side lined up. Again, these nails can go in your hand. Whoops. Okay. For some reason, the nail gun's shooting two at a time, and I may be using the wrong gun or too much pressure. I'm not sure. Okay, so we've got a base, a back, a front, a bird hole, and you can see the bird cavity. This is the living space in there. There's plenty of room for a nest of birds, a mother bird, nesting material. So they're real happy with a situation like this if they can find it. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here while we decide on the roof design. We do have the roof pattern, which will go on here, but we also might get a little bit fancy with what we put on the roof. So we'll be back here in a couple minutes, and we'll continue with Mike's workshop. Hello and welcome back to Mike's Workshop. While we were away, well, I say we, you were away, I was still here, we changed a couple things. Number one, we changed the nailing gun, went down to the brad size gun, which I think is more appropriate for the size of the nails that we're using. And also, we've changed cocktails, migrating from the domestic Budweiser to the Wernsgrüner. It's a Pils German beer, and it's available locally here at our Aldi store. And as typical of Mike's Workshop, we're going to use a tool, paint can opener, which seems to be well designed for opening beers also. So we're good there. So we've got our beer open. Quick sip there. Go ahead and get the patch off. Got the nail gun handy. Okay, also while we were away, we went ahead and started cutting the roof pieces to go on our birdhouse. You can see they're a little bit large. We're going to cut those down. And as always on Mike's Workshop, we're at the cutting edge of technology and trying new things. So, never tried before here in Mike's Workshop is to use a leftover piece of roofing material in the barn red color. It matches the Mike's Home, a little bit different than Mike's Workshop, but Mike's Home has this type of roofing on it. So the birdhouse will then match Mike's Home. So we're going to give it a try. So what we need to do is cut down our roofing material to match a fit of the red part of the roof. Of course, when they're on a real roof, they're going to overlay, and you're going to not see this part. You're only going to see this part. But we need to get the roofing material cut down to fit just in the red zone of the shingle. So I've never done this before, but I think a good start is probably to lay this material out here on the temporary workshop table, the stage for Mike's Workshop, and line this up. And we're going to go ahead and actually put the thickest part on the margin of the red part of the roof. And on these shingles, we already have a chalk line which has been put down that shows where that cutoff point is. If you're laying shingles, you're going to lay right to that line. So we're going to use this as the marker for where we're going to place our shingle piece. And then we need to find Mike's carpenter pencil. Which somehow has gone missing. But that's okay, we'll use this Sharpie, and they sponsor the Bristol races. Bristol up in Bristol, Tennessee, NASCAR. Alright, so we'll put a mark there, and that's going to tell us that's our cut point, just to make this roof piece a little bit smaller. You can get the shingle out of the way. And there's Mike's pencil. It was hiding. So we'll go ahead and just mark a cut line there. It should help us get this down to the size we need for the roof. Of course, this is a little bit too deep for our saw. We may have to make a couple passes here. Good, and we think that's going to be what we're looking for the roof piece. So let's cut the other one and make sure of course they're both the same overall length, which happen to match the pattern here on the shingle. So we'll go ahead and just line these two up together. Draw our pencil mark with Mike's pencil. Always a good clean cut when you use that pencil. Good clean line, and it's right on where we want it. Okay, so now basically we've got two identical roof pieces to go on the roof. Now the purist is going to note that actually they should be slightly different, because if we lay them together like this, you'll see that of course the difference here in this thickness is going to put this one further down. You could put them on like this and then cover with an overlaying shingle, but I've never done that before. Might be a good idea though. Put them on like this, and then if you had some shingle cap material, you could lay it right over the top. So we'll leave that to one of you in the audience to give a try to. But actually, that might work out pretty nicely. But I'm probably not going to do it. We just put it on like this. So we'll go ahead and then you need to decide how much porch the birds need. You can center your roof right on the front and back, equidistant. That's an idea. Just kind of eyeball it. You could put it completely flush to the front. That's a bit of a deep porch and could cause some interference as birds fly in from all directions trying to get in the bird hole. So you probably just want to go ahead and eyeball a near center position, something like that. That'll be cool. So we get that lined up. Reach down for our nail gun. Again, this is just eyeball signs. Get your stuff lined up there. Pop one in. And that'll keep her in place till we finish nailing down below. We'll go ahead and get the second one in, the other half of the roof. Again, these are roughly the same size. Do the high precision here in Mike's workshop with the pencil and the saw. We're able to keep things in pretty good tolerance. Now this one's tough because I can't see where the nail goes. Now here's a trick from Mike's workshop that you may want to keep in mind. You can just play with your T-square, and you're going to see that your depth there is like that, and you can transfer that mark to the top of the roof so you know where your target area for the nail is if you want to make sure you hit the side. Again, we line it back up. Go ahead and pop one in. Hopefully it'll hit. Whoa, what do you know? Alright, we're good. We got that one on. We're going to do something similar back here. Actually, up here we may just put one into the adjoining piece, so we've got assembly. Of course, now remember we didn't nail from the base to the front piece, so this might be a good opportunity. You don't want that happening. So we'll go ahead and pop in some from the bottom. The base fastened on there. The front. Can't remember. Maybe we did the back. Okay. So we basically have the structure of the birdhouse here in place. We've got a back, a front with a bird hole, two pieces for the roof. You'll see one extends a little bit lower than the other, but that's part of the Alpine design. Go ahead and pop in a couple more along there. So we're looking good. So now our next step is to try to get fancy and see what we can do with the roofing material. we already decided that we're going to cut this along the chalk mark line, and we're going to go ahead and try that with the compound miter saw. Looks like it might line up. Cut us a piece. Birdhouse out of the way a little bit. Trim off another piece. We'll trim that to fit later. We got something like this, which isn't. Oh yeah, work on this side. Okay. So that's going to fit on this side of the birdhouse. Now you can go ahead and overlap it like a roofer would, overhanging the roof there so the rain drips off even more, or you can go ahead and design it as a flush fit. So we'll leave that to you. I think I'm going to save a cut and just go ahead and put this in place like this. I do have a staple gun, so we'll switch from our nailing gun to the staple gun. Put this gun in energy mode. And we'll go ahead and pop this red roof material on there. See what we think. Ooh, yeah. We've got a red roof birdhouse. Front with bird hole, back, base, everything intact and looking good. Nice brick red, barn red, asphalt roofing material. Keep those birdies dry. It'll also protect the wood. One trick might have been to oil this down first before putting the roofing material on. Put tar paper on, fiberglass insulation up to the R value, and you can, I believe, get a tax deduction if your energy efficiency of your birdhouse is up to a certain level. So I believe there is a tax deduction for energy efficient birdhouses. Okay, well, I'm going to take a break here and try to figure out how big to make this other side and whether I've got any sort of a roof cap material that might make a nice trim across here. Possible we could bend something over the top, but we might run out of the red because that transitions pretty quickly. So probably in hindsight you might have wanted to make this roof piece a little bit smaller, not quite as long. Then you would have had some overlap there where you could have bent your roofing material over. But since this is the first time here at Mike's workshop for trying this design, I think we're doing pretty good so far. So we'll continue here in just a little bit and we'll finalize it. We'll get our dowel pin in for our bird landing post because they need that. They need a place to kind of stage coming in and out. You always want to have a little dowel out there. It's like a branch in a tree. It gives them a place to land and take off from. Also, the father bird can sometimes sit outside on that dowel and look inside to check on mom and the baby birds. Okay, well, we'll continue here just shortly. Hello and welcome back to Mike's workshop. While you were away, I was busy figuring out how to finish out this roof for our red roof Alpine style lake birdhouse. As you remember, we put this shingle piece on. We've dealt with a larger side here, which is bigger than the colored portion of our scrap shingle. But I think what we can do is cut a piece that's going to fit right on there, and then we'll use the traditional modified roof capping material. Just kind of bend a piece over the top and finish it off like this. So that should look pretty nice for a birdhouse. After all, it's just a damn birdhouse. Okay, so this should finish up pretty quickly. Got our staple gun. Get that reconnected to the air source. Again, you should be wearing safety glasses for these procedures. Go ahead and I've already cut this to fit, so you can imagine that process a little bit. Well, with Mike's pencil, it worked out pretty well, but we got it marked off and cut, and now we're going to just pop a few staples across the roof beam, and wow, look at that. So get the roof on there, the shingle on there. Go ahead and this one we need to be careful with how we do this. We'll have to think about that later, because you don't want to pop a long staple through your shingle, through the roofing material, and so it sticks out. And I'm trying to remember how long those little guys are. They're probably too long, so we'll figure that out later. We'll find some smaller staples, or not worry about it. The shingles will just hang on there. So then, to finish it up, we'll just take this piece that we've cut out of the red part of the scrap shingle, center it, and just kind of bend it in place. And heck, that's better than most birds have had their whole damn life. Go ahead and flip around to the other side and tack that in place. And a few extra. Of course, it does want to try to crack, you know, on top there. Good. All right. So there we go. We've got a red roof Alpine style birdhouse. Now we're just missing one final touch. As I mentioned, this landing zone is quite important for the birds. So what we've got here is a piece of wooden dowel, and the size, I should have been able to remember for you. I believe it's yes, it's according to the gauge, it's 5/16 inch dowel, and this is calibrated for the local birds' feet. So this is the right size dowel for our local birds to be able to grasp on there. Now, if you're working with eagles and building an eagle house, you're going to want to go with something quite a bit larger. Hummingbirds, tiny, but this is the good feet size dowel for our local birds here on Lake Hartwell. So we're going to get the 5/16 inch drill bit out, which we've taken the liberty to preload. Put it in forward mode, so we're drilling in, not in reverse, forward. And then you're going to go ahead and pick a spot just below center of the bird hole. And it's okay to go ahead and drill all the way through. And that's going to be perfect for the bird landing zone. Now, of course, you're not going to want to leave this much landing zone, or you're going to have a bunch of birds sat here waiting to get in. You want to just leave enough room for one, maybe two birds on the approach here. So I suggest we cut this down to, I'll give you a number, but that's variable. Let's go with 2.5 inches. Put it in the calibrated Mike's Workshop saw. Chop. Got the stick ready. And of course, you purists out there are probably going to want to use some Elmer's glue. I have to keep this little guy in there, but not necessary. Use the 5/16 dowel and the 5/16 inch bit, and jam that baby in there. It's not going anywhere. So we've still got a little bit of nailing to finish up, but I may use some adhesive under there, or find some short staples, or we just may let it flap in the wind. But there you go, the Mike's Workshop Alpine style red roof lakeside birdhouse for lakeside birds only. The calibrated hole will only allow in the local birds. So there you go. It's as simple as that. Remember, you just need to find some building materials, scrap, find a design you like, make patterns, copy, have your tools, have your safety equipment, and you're good to go. As you can see, quick and simple, and we have a home for birds and the tax deduction. Thanks again for watching Mike's Workshop. This episode has been dedicated to building the Alpine Birdhouse.